And welcome to the CITL Research and Practice Brief. Purpose of the series is to have conversations around the innovative use of technology and special education, early childhood related service and leadership personnel preparation programs. So today we have Dr. Victor Lee as our guest expert to share his research and practice on AI literacy. Dr. Lee is an associate professor in the Graduate School of Education at Stanford University and is faculty lead for the Stanford Accelerator for Learning's initiative on AI and education. His current research interests include learning experiences and resources for data literacy, K-12 data science education, and AI literacy for both students and teachers. This sounds like such an interesting area of research, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about his insight today. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Lee.
Thanks for having it, Eddie.
And then let's jump into research and practice brief. To start with, this will be our very first question. Could you describe the key issues you're addressing through your work on AI literacy in teacher coaching, or we can say teacher preparation program?
Yeah, as Eddie's involved in AI and education right now, there's a lot of things that are on my plate currently. One of the things that I'm working on broadly with AI in schools is this question around academic integrity. And there's been a lot of anxiety about cheating becoming more rampant. And so we've had empirical studies and funded work to explore some of that. What I'd say very quickly is it's nothing new with respect to how students has operated and behaved in the past, but it is getting a bit complicated in terms of how and creatively students are using a range of different activities and purposes. And that's definitely a place for open discussion. Now, with respect to AI literacy and K-12, amongst the things that I'm doing in that space is pushing for us to get better clarification what it means to have AI literacy. It's one of those terms that has, in many respects, gotten ahead of itself, where everybody would be enthusiastic about reporting AI literacy. But what does that mean? Does that mean somebody is able to distinguish between supervised learning and unsupervised learnings? Does it mean that they can tell which things are AI, which are not, from the perspectives of computer scientists, the history of AI? Does it just mean being able to things, knowing that the interfaces by which we interact with AI may change a lot in the future? Or does it just knowing about the risks and the use cases that are cause for alarm and where we want to be very thoughtful about having AI involved or not having AI involved because it just does not accord well with our values? So I work a lot with framework, articulation, and development. Some of that has involved groups like Teach AI. Some of that has involved just scholarly writings to clarify. So one of the things that I speak a lot about with AI literacy is that in our debates about what is AI literacy, there's three perspectives that tend to be prominent. One is that of the user, one is that of the developer of AI, and one is that of the critic of AI. And different segments of that space can be valuable at different times, and we can start to figure out how and when we're talking about the same thing or different pages with that. And then we also do work with teachers and helping teachers to gain more comfort with and understanding these multiple ways that AI would admit to teaching. So some of that was originally thinking it is a new form of the curriculum, like personalized materials for all. But there is actually a lot of use for behind-the-scenes work that teachers are doing with preparation, assessment, communications, into that ilk. And so working with multiple levels of teachers to teacher trainers to help and build that comfort and see the range of things to limit what AI can do. And then finally, we do have a co-design curriculum project with high school teachers around the country where we are looking at short lessons or activities that can speak to how AI is playing into current questions of the disciplines, and provide resources that teachers can use to explore that topic within the context of their subject area. So, like I said earlier, big plate to stuff on it, as is the case for everyone working with an AI, but with respect to AI and education and AI literacy, that a pretty decent sampling of uh, my own projects and activities.
That's really a great point. Thank you for the thoughtful and insightful answer. If I may briefly summarize, I mean, you're tackling key challenges in AI and education, especially around academic integrity, defining AI literacy, and teacher training. I found it especially meaningful how you framed AI literacy through the lens of user, developer, and critique. Clarifying that it is not a one size fits all concept. And then building on that, our second question is how will AI literacy address those issues? Especially how will it support students and pre-service teachers or teachers?
That's a great question. You should note the rate at which generative AI specifically has captured public attention has been quite fast, such that it feels like every week there's some development, some new models, new technology that has come out. And for folks who have not spent a lot of time thinking about AI and the exposure from social media, mass media things, knowing what it is, what it can do and it can't do is quite important, especially if this is going to become a potent tool or a potent resource in education. So understanding, for instance, this notion of hallucinations or why these sorts of things happen because of the probabilistic nature, large language models, or recognizing the very legitimate concerns you may have about copyright and ownership associated with AI, or what it means to accomplish certain tasks or activity, or who's represented, represented not. So I think that, anything in special education, they will share education at large. What's the breadth of learner and learner circumstance and experience that is represented? And so that's where a critical perspective and really understanding different users that are in there. So in this push for AI literacy is to recalibrate what it is that AI is and what it can do, and these sorts of considerations that we should foreground. So using special ed as an example, again, it may be tempting to use it for an IEP. However, we need to be very mindful of what privacy regulations that we need to maintain in terms of what information is provided. Because what we want to do is create a new AI course for pre-service teachers that becomes a requirement. It kind of lives sequestered from all of the other things. Rather, it's how do we think about AI when we think about the whole range of pedagogical tasks? How do we think about AI within the subject matter area? How do we think about AI with respect to student well-being or student interaction? And so therefore, I think it's incumbent upon all pre-service educators to innovate with how AI is presented or talked about, with its interesting possibilities, and also with clear-sighted understanding of its limitations, and helping to model and develop new ways that can operate in a school or classroom.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, but for programs that are just starting, it may feel overwhelming. What advice would you give to teacher preparation programs, including faculty members who are just beginning to explore AI literacy? Or I know you have extensive implementation experiences with AI literacy. So, what are the common misconceptions around AI literacy from faculty members or teachers, and how did you and your teams deal with that?
Or that it is very intelligent. Just even the word intelligence being with AI tend to imply its capabilities being far more than what they are. And what we focus more is shifting that view to it as a tool that you can learn to use effectively for some certain situations, and sometimes it's not the right tool to use for other situations. But shifting from intelligence to tool is probably the biggest point that we would start with. The other thing that tends to come up a lot in education is always start out as the kids are cheating with it. And so acknowledging what are the concerns and what makes the lessons or activities that we do feel hackable in there, and to reconnect back what our learning goals are and what are the means by which we can build a space with students to genuinely pursue them. And that then has come to, having rationales or transparency for why certain activities are structured in a certain way as students ask, or thinking about what are ways that AI can be used in service of some of those activities. And those are probably the two major points. So for somebody who's just getting started in pre-service teacher education, what I would encourage is start getting acquainted with what are some of the capabilities that you see, and there's a with AI, what specific teacher aim, and start to specify what kinds of activities or competency are most supportive of the intended learning goal that are in there, and then to formalize integration of those into your own teaching and promote an open dialogue within a larger program. Each program will have to reckon with its own structures, whether it's, negotiating with leadership or figuring out how things fit a much larger, complicated pre-service curriculum that may be distributed across many different colleges. And sometimes that takes the form of task force or committee, but we just need some courageous to begin to position AI in the way that is most sensible, which is as a tool, not the tool, but a tool.
I mean, you highlight the transparency and not just focusing on the AI as a tool for cheating, but if we guarantee the transparency, we can use it effectively. It is such a great and helpful advice, especially for programs that may not have experiences with these topics. And now let's discuss this research field. I mean, where do you see research on AI literacy going in the future? I mean, what is the trend with current AI literacy research, such as common research questions, discussions, and limitations? And what areas or research questions should we explore more?
Right now, it's a pretty right environment to be thinking about at literacy. So I know that, for instance, OECD and Code.org have been working together on a framework. Other frameworks have appeared as well. A lot of these are trying to articulate what would AI literacy look like at this particular moment. So that may involve, managing AI or creating with AI. And those practices may look a bit different. So there's some body of work that is painting the picture of what literacy looks like, or the thing that we call literacy. Where we're going to need more time and energy invested is on a full spectrum of assessments to help us understand and appraise how well we or our students are progressing in those pathways toward literacy as well. So I anticipate more assessment development. And then there are strands of design research for different resources, whether they're in full lessons, whether they're in specific online exploration tools to help make it easier for teachers to engage with this topic and content. There is a larger looming question that I think as a society we need to reckon with, which is why we care about NSG for the jobs of the future, say, or more informed decision making. Is it to address issues with inequity, misinformation? And that's something that and it goes beyond the research realm, although there are big compelling arguments offered on that. As with any sort of large shift, there will be some body of work that will kind of does the barometer and take pulse of where things are progressing over time. But I expect we'll start to think more about socio-technical systems that of AI and how to design those in alignment with our values and our intended outcomes. And there may be a whole interesting discoveries that come about as a result of that.
Thank you so much, Stan. Before we wrap up, we'd love to hear more about Stanford's craft initiative. What is its main purpose and how is it helping teachers bring AI or AI literacy into their classroom?
Yeah, so the main like to acknowledge, collect these schools where there's oftentimes specified learning goals or subject discipline is not that Oregon feels like can be covered in a year, but also a desire on the part of many educators to contemporary and relevant conversations or to see where things are shifting or moving for subjects that they're helping students to understand or develop a relationship. And so with that, I focused on small and learning experiences. So that way you could think about how does AI impact the way that human biology and medicine are coming into play, and what does that starting to look like professionally? And that would be a potential topic. Or you start to hear a lot about environmental concerns associated with AI. Let's unpack that and see what does that mean and kind of what is the state of things right now, and how do we translate that into the units and conversations that happen within environmental science in there. So that's the focus in really trusting that there's insight and complexity within the practice of educators. The co-design emphasis is key. Knowing what would really work in the classroom and suit the Tario and the adaptation practices that teachers make is important, and becomes a really source data for ourselves for what are our assumptions about classrooms, what are our assumptions about what teachers think about AI, or how do they relate to, right? So, the CRAFT initiative serving as a model for a way to do this in the current system where it's not realistic nor equitable. It's what they in the or environment that everybody complete before high school, because there's no clear schedule to complete, and those who can are where they really need more flexibility in their schedules. They have enough money to track the teachers for that. And if I do more the collective response, this is going to be as pervasive as a mobile device or social media, computer, writ large. So it becomes part of how we do our work. So I look at CRAFT a model for that. See other groups see that as an inspiration, and then we'll approach is that a great success metric is that we're not curriculum trying to use what we know through research from insights and peers engaging with the field to show what this could look like, and along the way making it all free and available, continuously growing as new developments come in, and we add in new teachers involved who are sharing their time very generously to help create curriculum, where I think that we'll eventually gain more knowledge further or in the heterogeneous rules, both or along all the dimensions, whether it's, geography, ability, resources that are available, and having more supports for research informed adaptation strategy to reflect that. But ultimately, it's a chance to give something that we feel is of a quality that can help with an immediate need and be informed by years of experience-based study.
Thank you so much, Napoli. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. We truly appreciate your time and the important work you're doing. Your insight today have been incredibly valuable in understanding both the challenges and the exciting possibilities in this field. I'm sure this research and practice brief will inspire many in our audience. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Teddy.